morning, everybody. This is Coffee and Pan Dulce, and we are rocking and rolling the second Wednesday of Pride Month, of International Pride Month. This is June already. It doesn't feel like it should be.
Wow.
But we not only have a informative show coming up, we have a special guest, and probably one that may join us underway, but we'll keep her identity secret to make sure that way we don't embarrass her. We do have one fabulous guest, a good friend of mine that I've known for almost the whole time I've been in Charlotte, and then of course my show partner and producer Christian Cano. How are you doing, Christian?
Hey Jen, happy June the 8th. Wow.
Dude, it doesn't. I don't know. It's just not. Well, when we drop the show, So full disclosure, a lot of people don't realize, because a lot of times our coffee isn't really coffee in our mugs, is that we record these typically on Monday night so that we can do the promos and the editing. So by Monday morning, when it drops officially. No, we tell on ourselves every week. So you just pre-told on ourselves, because we usually say something like, "Oh yeah, today was really sunny," and then on Wednesday it's raining. So
exactly. They're like, where are they? Where are they?
Those two aren't too bright, but anyway,
that's true.
But yes.
All right. So everyone, welcome to Coffee Pan Dulce. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts, along with Jenny Gunn and Barb Bacon and Mama Ruth. We are Mama Ruthless today and Baconless today. Barb Bacon will be with us next week. She's got her, she's just always doing things. So she's, volunteering for so many things. So we want to thank you, those who are joining us on Facebook Live, but also those who join us on YouTube and Facebook later on. And once again, now the thousands that join us or listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platform like
Spotify. Well, for the people that listen to our show, they don't know that we cuff our mouth.
That's right.
Because of the whole Joe Rogan thing from 4 months ago when we started going, or 5 months ago, when all that became world famous.
That's right.
Made him way more famous than he should have been. But anyway,
all right.
But we will go around the Brady Bunch screen and introduce ourselves. You'll be to go first, Christian, and then I can lead into our special guest. So I'm Jenny-Jaymes Gunn. I'm on all things LGBT in the greater Charlotte area. I help with Charlotte Pride, which I'm wearing my handy dandy little t-shirt. The LGBT Dems and a whole bunch of other groups, and of course the Charlotte chapter of the National Organization for Women. And then I want to introduce our special guest. She is a good friend of mine that we've talked about all kinds of organizations, and she represents Indivisible, and she is the senior regional organizer for North and South Carolina, and a fabulous woman. I'm gonna let you talk about yourself for a second.
Oh goodness. Oh, hi everyone. Rachelle Salo here, and like Jenny said, I am senior regional organizer for Indivisible, and I cover the Carolinas. It's a lot of work. Got some fantastic folks all across both states, and work to help keep them supported in the amazing work they do, both in community level, state levels, and at the federal, trying to get us, some better politicians to deal with. And it's nice to be with y'all today.
Fabulous. Yes, today, tomato.
Yeah, there we go.
We're all good. We're good for this show's pretty bootleg. I'm just going to say we have a lot of followers.
Very bootleg.
But when we go very informal, You're doing great.
That's right. Well, and I'm Christian Cano. You're the co-host. My buttons are healthcare for all and Medicare for all. Moms About Action, gun sense legislation, and in my heart, Black Lives Matter, on behalf of Joe Oldham, who was a guest of ours for several years. All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and today's topic is Summer of Rage, which is one of the reasons we're so happy to have Rachelle on tonight, and also the other guest who hopefully will be joining us. And of course, Jenny knows a lot about this with the National Organization for Women. But before that, in 30 seconds or less, let's talk about the 3 current events. You ready? All right. ERCOT, E-R-C-O-T. It's an acronym. It's the group that runs the energy in Texas. They issued a warning today about 3 hours on Monday. 3 hours ago on Monday. Anyway, they issued a warning saying that they expect to break their electricity use record, and they were encouraging everyone to raise their thermostats to 78 degrees because they're afraid they're going to have some blackouts. I don't mean to laugh. The second one is once 2 or 3 of these, there were 2 men that were arrested in Michigan, and they were trying to entice these girls on the internet, and they were arrested, and I'm only mentioning that because of all the stuff about who the groomers are. All right, so we're going to mention that. And then the last one, Jenny's favorite person, 3 names, MTG. She actually has been in the news. One, she hired some guy who said that he's a new intern for her, that he's now not gay. Anyway, that's a long story. But more importantly, yeah, exactly. But more importantly, she actually wanted to know David Hogg, the young man from the Parkland, Florida shooting who started March for Our Lives, the activist that she harassed. If you remember that, she tweeted she wanted to know why he wasn't coming to visit her when he came to visit other Congress people. And she said, because she said she was part of a lockdown when she was in high school in the 1990s. And he said, I don't want to be a part of you going viral on the internet. So anyway, with 30 seconds less, Jenny, you want to start?
Sure. First of all, ERCOT, massive failure, always been a massive failure. At any time you privatize public utilities and public access to stuff, that's what you get. You get what you pay for. Think about this summer when you're boiling in your house in Texas on the verge of heat stroke, and memorize that when you go to the polls in November. And vote like you got heat stroke. Thank you, Republicans. Groomers in Michigan, guess what? It wasn't gay or trans people. Again, for the 1,000th time in a row. LGBT people don't groom kids. That's for cis men to do. Pedophile priests, pedophile teachers, pedophile, militia people, and Congress people like Matt Gaetz. Anyway, MTG having the nerve and I don't know, I guess it must have been a winery today when she tweeted that, because, she likes only the good stuff. The fact that she literally harassed David Hogg so much in person that he should have filed a restraining order on her and probably some criminal charges, has the even audacity to even say that. I love David's answer. He's 10 times the adult she'll ever be, and she's twice his age. Just I can't wait for David to get old enough to be able to run for office. I hope he moves to that Georgia district if she's still in there. But anyway, just right. She's a waste of $10 in chemicals.
Excellent. Thank you, Jen. And Rachel, do you want to comment on any of those?
I'll give a shout out. Sure,
okay, go ahead.
Okay, all I'll say is I wish our Texas organizer was here to talk about the Texas thing. But I will say last winter, I was coaching her on how to make space heaters to keep herself warm in the winter. So whether it's winter or summer, this grid isn't holding up.
Mm-hmm.
Bit out of the loop on the grooming incident that you happen to be mentioning, but let's just call it what it is. It's always projection with the GOP.
Yes.
And
thank you.
MTG, so much there to choose from. All I can say is that I saw the little announcement about the, let's say the person who shan't be named, and was not surprised in the least. That is her latest and greatest staffer choice.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Sorry to interrupt you, Rachel, but I completely forgot. I'm a little off today, as I usually am. We do want to thank our Panduce's sponsor and supplier, Manolo's Bakery here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Manolo's Bakery, please visit your Black and brown small businesses or any small business during this global pandemic. Always try to buy local. So with that, and also we do want to salute to our neighbors, whatever you're drinking this morning. Coffee with rum. Wonderful. All right. So me very quickly. ECOT, exactly right. I just keep keying. Anyway. All right. The grooming thing, I just, and they keep, and they're still on that message. They're still trying to say the gay people are groomers and anyway. So MTG, I just, she is just a publicity queen. Publicity whore. Can I say that? Is that misogynist? Is that, Jen?
No, because men can be whores too. Anybody can be.
Okay. All right. So,
but I will say,
yes.
To me, in my eyes, I've got lots of friends that are sex workers. I'd much rather associate with my friends that are sex workers than a pathological psychopath like MTG. First of all, they make an honest living. They earn every dime putting up with typically men as clients, or in Lindsey Graham's case, anyway, we won't talk about his.
Don't talk about Lindsey.
Sweet tooth for male sex workers in the greater Washington D.C. area. Allegedly. But when they break out these Gruber things, like Rachel said, it's projection. It's don't look at me, don't look at me hiding over here, like Jim Jordan or any of the other, Jerry Falwell Jr. and the pool boy, Matt Gaetz and the alleged flight, and circus that was going on with that. It just keeps going on and on. Like how many times do we have to talk about this before the party that's going to rescue kids and stop the sex trade actually just says, you know what?
Yeah.
Let's just go full on honesty.
Okay. Let's get into our topic, if you don't mind. Actually, let's take our first break. So that way I don't have to interrupt you. Let's take our first break. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. We'll be right back on Coffee Pan Dulce. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for watching our Coffee Pan Dulce show every week. Don't forget, you can watch us visually on our video podcast platforms on Facebook and YouTube. But you can also listen to us on your favorite audio podcast platforms like Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all of the other ones that your favorite, whatever your favorite is. Once again, thank you for watching us on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll dance out. Thank you. Welcome back. And so the topic today is Summer of Rage. And this topic actually came from the New York Times or the Washington Post. I can't remember, one of those big papers. And they were talking about how this summer was with women marches, with the Don't Say Gay bill. There's so many things people are going to be, I guess you could say protesting or calling attention to with allegedly ruining. But to show you how this is, Fox News did a story on how to survive the Summer of Rage. They were trying to tell their viewers how to survive, all these, the way they, anyway. All right. So with that said, Summer of Rage, Jen, let's get you to lead this. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah. I want to preface it with, which was somebody that I researched that talks about rage and actually international civil war. She is a lady out of California, and I believe she teaches at UC San Diego. But her name is Dr. Barbara F. Walter, not like the reporter. So it's not Walters, but Walter. And she does a lot of studies with the federal government and has written books and papers and studied this for 30 years, conflict, civil war, unrest, that sort of thing. And they got contracted back in about 2016, 2017, along with other peers around the country to talk about international civil war threats around the world. Now, they purposely left the United States out of this study, but out of academic curiosity, she applied those same statistics and same tracking things to the United States. And what they found was there's a couple things that happen when you're on the verge of civil war. One, that one political party starts to really huddle up into one ethnicity or religious group. Two, that you start seeing, rule of law breakdowns, little elements of violence, that sort of thing, and start getting more chaotic. Interesting enough, in 2008, white people were about 50-50 Democrat or Republican. The Republican Party in 2022 is almost 90% white. There was a massive shift from 2008 to 2022. So that's one deal. The January 6th, she also referred to as both a gift and a moment of clarity. Incidents like that usually happen right before a civil war. And because the public doesn't really notice these divisions as much as people that are engaged in politics like the three of us are. And so a lot of times civil wars don't have that moment of clarity or that, we maybe should start paying attention to this. So just some interesting stuff. And one more thing, you also start to see militant groups, militias, that sort of thing, starting to do aggressive things towards public officials because they're not fearing reprisal. The same group that Timothy McVeigh was part of in the Oklahoma City bombing is also the same group that threatened to kidnap the Michigan governor during the lockdowns. And one more thing, they also use a book that many of the people that attacked the Capitol building January 6th, and that book was called the Turner Diaries. And so it's a manifesto about civil war and militias and that sort of thing. And it has kind of the blueprint on how to topple government. So leading into that, we've noticed a lot of chaos, a lot of disinformation coming from one specific side. And, you know, so in saying that, these are the challenges groups like Indivisible have to face. They have to face not only disinformation machines from other groups, but they also have to educate. And so I want to lead in by asking, what is, and you mentioned a little bit of this off the air, what is Indivisible doing to push back against disinformation? And what are they doing to educate the public to help them make good political decisions?
Well, that's a lead in.
Yeah, that wasn't even a curveball. That was just an easy little lay at this. I'm just going to lay in. We want to make it easy on you since you take the time to sit up with us for an hour.
Well, I mean, I enjoy your company always. So,
yeah.
You know, so the things Indivisible is kind of working on right now, we have a couple of different buckets outside of the electoral work, obviously, and that would be, you know, our biggest priority going into this summer and fall is to be moving that needle. But alongside that, we're also doing work with one of our programs called Truth Brigade. Truth Brigade is an online disinformation disrupting program that we operate. We have several thousand volunteers. We have calls twice a month, and we run kind of short campaigns around specific messaging. And a lot of those are trying to disrupt the disinformation out there, as well as disrupt the environment of hate, was our most recent campaign. And alongside the work we're doing in Truth Brigade, and another program that I'm involved in is our rural project. And so for the next 2 months, our June call and our July call, we're going to be doing some safety training heading into this summer for our rural folks, because as you can imagine, folks in more rural areas might feel more surrounded in a sea of red, and a place that doesn't feel it's safe to go out and do protest work. So we just want to kind of like beef up some of their skills around both martial training and how to keep your events safe, as well as some electoral safety, because we're hoping to bring in organization like SPLC, yes, to maybe help identify hotspots around the U.S. currently, and be able to visually identify certain symbols of hatred or symbols that are used by some of these radical groups, some of these extremist groups. Because if you're out tabling or canvassing, and you want to be able to recognize these for your own safety a little bit quicker, especially in these rural areas. So, that's just two of the little kind of pieces we're working on. We're also doing some pushback around some of this culture war narrative through our Give No Ground program.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they get, they create a narrative by calling it a culture war, when really it's not a culture war. It's really a movement of hate. I mean, when you're targeting specific ethnicities or targeting pushing a narrative of xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia. Obviously, it's not a culture war. It's not a conflict between, maybe, Mexicans versus, Peruvians, or something like that, where they're in San Antonio and a Peruvian neighborhood doesn't like the Mexican neighborhood right next to them or something like that. Like, it's not a cultural war per se, where maybe even not really just a war, but more of a, we just don't like you, but we're going to have kind of fun with it. And it's more harmless when you're targeting specific groups. I mean, the media calls it a culture war. I call it, I call it targeting. I call it specifically, teen certain. We've seen so much violence against the Asian American community. We've seen so much violence against, obviously, the LGBT community. Charlotte being the second most dangerous city in America, as identified by many media deals as the second most dangerous city in the United States.
Hey, Jen, I have a question for Rachel and you as well. So, they're called Summer of Rage. And of course, the Fox News is trying to say that this is going to be prepared for these women's marches that are going to be, violent and destructive. And, they're trying to make it sound like it's this, these crazy people out there, raging. That's kind of how they're trying to put on this. But basically, this is just people who are standing up and saying, listen, I want to let you know what happened if this ruling comes out and my reproductive rights are taken away. So how do you think these do you think these are going to be marches, Rachel? Are these going to be just like, holding signs on the corner or how do you think it's going to, I mean, we're already in the summer, but.
Yeah. I'd say it's probably going to vary regionally, right? Of course, around DC, there'll be much more direct actions, much more, of the big marches and the larger gatherings. Nationally, we do anticipate that there will be whenever the ruling drops, right, on the Dobbs case, there will be a 24-hour call to action. So we'll take our, trying to do the prep work where we can now to anticipate what supports we may need in our local areas. And in Charlotte, we have typically used a couple of different locations for these rapid response ones. I like Government Center personally. I think it's very open and accessible. But we also know that there will be a larger call to action collectively after the date that's being tossed around is in early July. But until that gets solid, I hate to put something out there and have it not be accurate. Yeah. But we do anticipate the 24-hour notice, for quick turnaround of immediate response. And I will say from national, we're not anticipating there to be a lot of changes in the language from the leaked to what we are going to receive. So we don't think it's going to get better than what we saw. And they might soften a little bit.
So how about you?
14th century.
So how about you? Yeah. How about you, Jen? What do you think is going to occur when this drops? Because this is really kind of based around this abortion ruling, right? Most of this. Okay.
I think we got a taste of it when the leak first happened, and we saw, Indivisible and many other groups around the country, especially reproductive rights groups, feminist groups, that sort of thing, organized pretty quickly. Just to, give that really verbal pushback like we saw in 2017 with the Women's March. I think they definitely send a message. You definitely saw the Republicans scramble. You've seen everything from the good cop, bad cop approach, like we've seen in North Carolina, where they proposed 3 different bills last week, and 2 of them were good and 1 was trash. Yeah. 1 was anti-trans, or the don't say gay bill. The North Carolina version of it, and then we saw a Medicaid expansion bill come up, and the
marijuana bill,
and the medical marijuana bill all come up in the same day, or approximately the same time, which I found very interesting. So it's kind of like I equate the Republicans like an abusive partner. Apropos since the Heard and Depp trial, defamation thing that just happened, but kind of where they're massaging the shoulders one moment and then slapping you the next. It's kind of like
or like they're going, "Hey, look over here," so you don't see this.
Yeah,
look over here. Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure, just from reading national news, a lot of the more red states tended to do that. But I think when this drops, my personal guess is, and this is not based on anything other than just my intuition and understanding the Republican brain a little bit, I think they're gonna drop it in or around 4th of July. I think they're gonna get it pretty close to a holiday. I think they're gonna do it when people are looking the other way. I think that is the most prominent holiday I call it the most prominent redneck holiday of the summer. It's their pride.
I like the 4th.
I mean, I like the 4th, except for the explosions and the hold my beer, watch this moment.
But Jen, don't you think, question for both of y'all, don't you think that might actually really inspire people in America, because that's our Independence Day. And if they drop this right around July 4th and people are talking about our freedoms and so forth, I mean, the perfect thing is to say, how can we be celebrating July the 4th when we're telling women you don't have the freedom to do, your reproductive rights? So, I mean, this can actually be, inspire people.
I don't think that'll be lost on the Supreme Court at all. I think that I think what we're getting right now from the far right is they're going, we know we're going to be a minority. White nationalists will be the largest minority in about 4 years, maybe less. I think they're going for that last gold medal. I think they're saying, if we're ever going to permanently root ourselves into the power brokers of this country, we have to put them so far back on their heels, and we got to show them we're not afraid. And I promise you, I would almost take bets. It's going to be 3 to 4 days in or around the 4th of July.
Okay.
And I think they're going, I dare you to push back on this.
Yeah.
I dare you. I don't think, and I'm not even sure the leak was actually.
Go ahead, Rachel.
All I'll pop on and say is that, the Supreme Court calendar is public. So you can look on Supreme Court website and see that the 6th and the 8th are opinion issuance days. So we can anticipate some today and 8th, whenever, as well as the 13th, 21st, and 27th are their order list issuance days. Okay. So, we do anticipate it being at the end of June, just for what it's worth, because this is probably going to be the last thing they drop and get out of town. So be there and listen to the protests.
Yeah.
So, we also have a contentious case around the New York concealed carry permit that's going to drop too. So I think to me, that's the piece that has me a little bit aggravated, is that I see the inherent hypocrisy of what they're about to do is tell New York, you can't issue restrictions on guns. That has to be a federal mandate. And in the next order will be, but women, we are not going to protect you federally. You have to be regulated by the states. So, and they will see no conflict of, conscience in making those, incredibly opposing rulings in the same month.
It is kind of a bizarre mindset that, they'll be yelling out states' rights and a whole bunch of other things.
So hypocritical.
It's a very bizarre that ovaries are controllable by conservative men. Guns, not so much. We would more guns, the better. We'll give teachers guns. We'll give bricklayers guns. We'll just more of the guns, the better it's going to be, according to that.
So you guys don't think that there's going to be like big marches or rallies? You think they're going to be?
I think they will.
Or just,
but I think Rachel's exactly right. I think the end of June, leading into the holiday weekend or the holiday week, however much time they take off. I think personally, whenever I fire somebody in corporate America and they were a problem child, I always fired them on Friday, or because that's when you're supposed to fire somebody, is right before the weekend, if they're a problem child, because then they have a couple days to cool off before they go, where's my swing line stapler? But I think the SCOTUS is full of cowards. And I think they'll drop those bombs real quick and then run off, have their little break. That doesn't mean there's going to be fireworks over that break.
Their break lasts till October. Their break lasts till October.
Correct.
So they get more than a little break. They don't have to come back and face the music for a while. And I don't think they care.
Yeah.
So, hey, y'all, let's go ahead and take our second break. And then when I come back, I want to ask y'all, how do you think this summer of rage will translate to the midterms, or if it will? I mean, will this inspire people, or just going to be the same people who are going to vote? So we're going to take our second break on Coffee Pan Dulce. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Christian Cano. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. And also thank you so much for watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. But also don't forget, you can actually listening to us on your favorite audio podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, and others. Once again, thank you for so much for watching us and listening to us on Coffee and Pan Dulce. Have a great day. All right, welcome back. So the question to both of you, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, do you think this is it's just going to be us, the people who are, activists and advocates, or is it actually going to inspire the people who aren't as engaged as we are? And they're like, hey, what's going on? I'm going to go to, like the George Floyd marches. I mean, really, there were people who were not really engaged in things, but this was such a powerful moment for them that they said, I'm going to go to this event. So you'll have it.
Well, I'll speak from my recent experience.
Okay.
And that is, on May 14th, when we had, when Planned Parenthood and Move On, Ultraviolet, all of the organizations did the Bands Off Our Bodies call to action. That is kind of the name for their summer campaign. I do want to name that it is Planned Parenthood and the folks that are in this lane that are really driving this. Indivisibles in a support role. A lot of our groups do lead things. They might be one of the few groups in a small rural area, but of course, in a city like Charlotte, I definitely like to see us in supportive spaces as much as we can be. But with the May 14th event, two brand new people stepped forward to create the event, put it up on the map. So it definitely is invigorating people who, even over the last, say, 6 years, haven't been involved, step forward around this issue because they care that passionately about it. And, we definitely kind of took them under wing and gave them the support they needed to have an incredible rally and made sure they had the great speakers and lineup to make it powerful and meaningful for the folks that attended. And we had, say, between 2,500 to 3,000 people show up. So it was pretty solid turnout for, was it about a week turnaround time?
Yeah.
The word out about it. And I feel like, there was lots of familiar faces to me, and I go to enough of these and help run behind the scenes on it. That I know a lot of the familiar faces, certainly not all. And, but I will say I was invigorated to see new people stepping forward and to get motivated and engaged by this, specifically by women's people's reproductive health care.
How about you, Jen? What do you think?
Well, I think what drives a lot of rage and or violence in this country, or what primarily drives it, is always poverty. And if the poorest people in this country are being the most affected by runaway gas prices, runaway, problems with ERCOT, whatever it is, but the driving force of the reason why you should stop the war on drugs is because it disproportionately affects poor people and it disproportionately affects communities of color. And so they're also being the ones hurt. $5 a gallon gas is going to hurt somebody like me that lives at or around the poverty level versus somebody that makes $100,000 a year. And, it's basically a poverty tax, and so if your food costs more, because we only buy the essentials, like, gas, groceries, that sort of thing. And so when all that goes up, even just a small percentage, even 8 or 9%, which is what groceries have gone up this year, is I think like 8.5%.
Hey, Jen.
It's devastating on a budget. I spent more on food the last couple months than I have in quite a while, and I'm a single person. So if it's affecting me, I can't imagine, a house of 4 or 5 or 6 people with 3 or 4 kids, and especially growing kids. I remember what my kids were like when they were going through the teenage year. So you that's going to fuel rage. That's going to fuel. You're going to see a lot of young adults that maybe are college students or working a couple jobs, trying to figure out their life, and then wham, we hit them with another economic hurdle that these youngest two generations, the millennials and the baby Z's, have already faced 4 or 5 bubbles and recessions, and then 2020.
Yeah, I mean, so, I just read on Monday, I think the housing market, because the interest rates have gone up, that the housing sales of people, the companies that do mortgages, they're actually like Wells Fargo and some other ones here in Charlotte. We have a lot of them, and they're actually laying people off because people are just, it's slowing down a little bit. Yeah,
and that creates even more rage. I just
Sure.
saw a Twitter discussion today with some of my peers, income wise, that are politically active people in the LGBT community, talking about an American dream as far as the home ownership is concerned is impossible. It's not even probable. And then you see Wells Fargo laying off people, and you're going, we don't care. We're not going to be part of it anyway, which also fuels us from the fact that we're housing insecure as a generation, and especially the youngest and poorest of us.
So how
buying a home.
So how do y'all think this? Do you think this is going to roll over to make an impact on the midterms, or is it just that's my fear. My fear is that people are going to be so angry this summer, and then October comes, and it's going to be like, okay, well, what can we do? And then,
I mean, if we compare it to 2020, which is hard to do, but I mean, Trump's still on the ticket because he has all of his hand-picked nominees out there,
especially here in North Carolina.
A prime example, our Senate race here in the state, Justice Beasley versus Bud the Dud. And, a personal hand-picked guy endorsed.
This Bud's not for you.
Yeah, we don't.
That's what she said. Rachel knows what I'm talking about. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Jen, go ahead.
But so we're seeing Trumpism still, on the ticket this year. Let me tell you something. If the reality sets in that Trumpism and supply side economics is what's destroying this country, and the corporate greed, because we've taken all the restrictor place off corporation, can be messaged, and you're seeing it. I've seen more about corporate greed, and I think on top of it, the UK, doing that windfall tax against petroleum companies just today or just 2 days ago. I think literally people with 24-hour news and Twitterscape and all that are going to say enough's enough, and then you start protesting by not buying gas. They're going to start if they start doing what I call versions of sit-ins. People start buying bikes and start.
I agree. So
the best
Jen,
the best way to burn a company, the petroleum company, is just take away the demand.
So Rachel, jump in. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I can again speak to what I'm seeing, right? So what I can say is that I've had groups from South Carolina reach out as soon as the Roe leak happened. They had kind of a first rally, and then they did again on the 14th. And my inbox is constantly full now I have so much energy in my group. People are ready. People want to do stuff. What do we need to be working on? And so I just kind of give them the checklist, like, here, these are your races in South Carolina. You've got a great Senate race coming up. You've got a governor's race coming up. You've got a lot happening right there. North Carolina groups, always a little more engaged, but what I'm noticing is smaller groups in more rural areas are starting to bubble up and be like, okay, it's election year. We've got work to do, people.
Yeah.
And so whether it's bottom of the ballot school board races where folks are angry about having to show up and defend mask wearing and defend literature and reasonable, social, emotional education and learning, like the energy, what I'm seeing out there is it is picking up. And
Rachel,
that's from retirement communities down in South Carolina or Raleigh area where they're having to fight at school boards the way we've been doing here in Charlotte and over in Union for the last little while.
Rachel, do you have don't mind me asking, do you have any kids in CMS?
I do. I have a third grader and a seventh grader.
Okay. So those who are listening to us or watching us, CMS is the Charlotte School District, the Charlotte Mecklenburg School District. And so Rachel, as a parent, because we talked about this, we had some groups on from, Florida, two groups on from Florida.
The Tampa Bay area.
That's right. Sarasota area. That's right. Sarasota. And so what are your thoughts, like as a parent, when you're seeing all of this school board stuff, and and these moms for freedom and moms for liberty, and I mean, I'm curious because I don't have any kids in school, so I'm curious what you think.
I mean, I my instinct is that they organize like an MLM does. And it's effective. It's an effective strategy for them. And I started blowing alarm bell on this one last summer when we saw the re-entry into school last fall with all of the tension around masking, and then it quickly shifting into the anti-CRT nonsense. And we don't call them Moms for Liberty. We call them Moms for Racist Nonsense. I can't take credit for that. There's a fantastic activist here in Charlotte that has that owns that moniker, but it's accurate. Yeah. It's accurate. Absolutely. Yeah. But it definitely was shocking to see them coming at the schools like that. It's kind of this, again, the incredible hypocrisy of, you can't trust teachers to create a curriculum for your students, but yet you want to arm them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I have had great experience here with my kids in their schools. And, I think North Carolina has done a good job with our social studies and stuff curriculum that's now under review again because of our lieutenant governor and his task force for indoctrination. All of that kind of nonsense. But we've asked so much of teachers in the last 2.5 years of this wild pandemic we've lived through. And I think what happened was a lot of parents had a glimpse into the classroom. A lot of parents that maybe weren't connected, and then now were suddenly forced to sit home with their children and forced to make sure they were signed into Zoom call classrooms, and got a little bit of an earful, and then were told things that weren't true about what their children were actually learning.
Sure.
I think the social emotional learning curriculum that our school does, particularly the elementary school does, a PDAES program, which teaches character and values, which, are solid things for elementary school kids to learn. I think those are reasonable and appropriate. And, but I think these parents that have suddenly gotten more into the classroom than they've been in a long time are just being easily swayed by the MLM that they have joined.
Yeah.
Well, and just like a lot of multi-level marketing companies and groups, and I call them cults, they usually have a lot of religious overtones, and the Christ prosperity group, like a Joel Osteen type cult. And then I think the biggest thing too is that they want you to believe everything they say, like it's the gospel, or you're questioning our faith if you don't believe our lies. Like when they say outrageous stuff, like they're teaching kids about gay sex in the 3rd grade, for example, like they were doing down in Florida, I'm like, no, they don't teach sexuality in the 3rd grade. I've had kids in school. I'm like, if it gets mentioned at all, it's way into high school, and it's just the rudimentary. It's usually just teaching about STDs. It's not really sex education. It's STD training on what not to do. It goes right back to Nancy Reagan's, just say no thing. But I think one of the most important things you said, Rachel, was don't teach them any, math, reading, social studies, anything like that. But I do want to get you a couple Glocks, that way you just have them on each hip, Wild West holsters. We're going to put you in some gun training classes, and you're now going to be part of the SWAT team. Yeah. And listen to the Uvalde SWAT team, because they do run the moment they see an AR-15.
Right. The school to prison pipeline is bad enough. I don't need teachers with questionable spaces, questionable. The teacher who would want to carry a gun into the classroom is probably not the one I would want anyway.
Well, exactly.
And what could go wrong?
Everything.
What can happen?
Kids. And I mean, you already have teachers that get, school supplies stolen, maybe occasional sniffing of the glue. But now we're going to put, a firearm on each hip of a teacher. What could humanly possibly go wrong with kids having access? Because teachers are human. They'll maybe go to the bathroom, they'll lay the pistol into their desk, and they may lock it up in that desk.
Mm-hmm.
But how many kids? I mean, when I was at a certain age, I could pick locks. I mean, it's not that hard, and next thing you know, we have an accidental shooting because somebody forgot they didn't put it on safety. They dropped their gun and a gun fires off. Like how many cops have shot themselves in the foot in a changing room? I mean, I have a couple friends that are LEOs, and the stories of accidental discharge are more common than most LEOs actually have fired their weapon in a standoff situation. Again, the Uvalde cops probably are more like Barty Fife. They're a danger to themselves more than others, except for when the AR-15s show up. But I think when we start distrusting, our most trusted people, which are teachers, yeah, I can see why there's going to be a summer of rage. I'd be, if I had kids in school right now, I'd be flipping tables.
Yeah. So, Jen, let's go ahead and take our last break. And this last break talks about the show that Jen leads about 30 minutes after this on Wednesdays. What's it called?
Two Queers and a Truck.
So we're going to take our last break to talk about the show that's after this one, where we really let our hair down. All right, we'll take a break.
Up next is Two Queers in a Truck with Jenny and Christian. And hope you guys tune in. We'll see you in about 15 to 20 minutes. Thank you.
All right, welcome back. And so don't forget, if you want to really hear what we have to say, because we don't say it here.
Yeah, we hold back. We
really hold back. So think about this. We're actually holding back.
Well, we hate. Yeah,
don't hold back on my account. I'm good.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
We started Two Queers during the pandemic, and we were all originally. We literally went into Christian's truck, his SUV. We wore masks. We drove around the greater Charlotte area, kind of throwing shade at people walking by, and just having a good time telling people about Charlotte. It was more like a blowing off steam. We were getting outside some way because social distancing was pretty much in full force, unless, of course, you were a Republican governor candidate. And then, masks don't matter. But anyway, in 2020 it was a little different. So, and then we just kept doing the show, but started doing it like this, but with different nuances. So anyway, I did want to ask something real quick. And I don't know if we have to spend much time on it, but I'm an avid reader about topical stuff and news and stuff like that. And Mr. Christian got quoted in a Observer article talking about our Senator candidate, Sherry Beasley. And the subject became Medicare for all, healthcare for all. And you shared some concerns about maybe her version of what she wanted to see versus what healthcare for all and Medicare for all is proposing. And I wanted to give you a moment to kind of clarify what those concerns are, if there's any. Thank you. Because I know you're a big supporter of Sherry, So
exactly.
But I did want to hear your take on that.
We attended it was basically a healthcare kind of town hall. Rachel was there as well. And so other people had asked, where she stood on this issue and so forth. And she explained where she was. And I basically shared my concern about, and maybe I should have phrased it differently because that's how I was quoted that way. But, you've got my vote. She's got mine. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure she's elected. But everyone's not like me. There are some people who this is a very important issue for in our party, but not just in our party, and so forth. So how do you make sure they come out as well with what we need to happen? And so, I am, listening to her, I felt so confident. It was like we finally, and I don't want to say this like this because it's going to come out, but she's the real deal. We've got someone who I think has the skill set, has the experience, has the character. I said this character, the courage, the judgment, and the decency to be our senator. That's someone that I would want to be my senator because the option is Trump, and that's not even an option. So thank you, Jenny, for letting me clear that up. I'm completely supportive. And I can say, maybe Rachel, you can jump in. Everyone who left that we're on board, even if she doesn't support Medicare for all, I'm on board. So I don't know, Rachel, did you feel that way?
Yeah, no, it was a
Yeah.
very supportive crowd. I think everyone, someone tossed out Indivisible, one of our key questions, where you stand on the filibuster, and she was
Yes.
she was quick to shoot the filibuster down, and that's great. We've got to get that changed so that we can get anything passed, whether it's Medicaid for all or voting rights or any of the other critical democracy reforms that we need to have to improve this ragtag democracy that we are clinging to right now.
But you know what, Jenny? I'm just going to say this last thing, and then and you go in. The one thing that I was really impressed by Justice Beasley was about 3 months ago. I was on a Zoom kind of like a call with the other candidates. At that time, Jeff Jackson was in the race, and here in North Carolina, and also Erica Smith was in the race as well for Senate. And she was asked about the filibuster, and she was not 100% supportive of the filibuster. And now she's supporting the filibuster. So to me, that told me that she is, she has the ability to see, she's not, no, I'm not for it, and that's it. She's going to do what's best for this state, what's best for us. And that's what we need. We don't need someone like, Bud, who's just going to be chaotic. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm rambling.
I just want to make sure we're clear. Yeah. Supporting ending the filibuster.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes.
She was supporting the filibuster.
That's
supporting
right.
the end of the filibuster.
Go ahead, Jen.
Well, and I think since the fall of 2020 to right now, the needle has moved on a lot of things that we're going to accept. We've had January 6th happen. We've seen a rise in white nationalism, school board protests, all kinds of things, where we're seeing a very militant, very in-your-face, aggressive alt-right wing attacks. And it's not just in verbiage or really rough political ads on the TV and the Google machine. We're seeing physical violence, and I think a level of physical violence that's concerning. And I think a couple hot takes on this. One, I think you're going to see more left-leaning groups bow up a little bit more and say, we're not going to be pushed back. Now, we're not apt for violence, but we're also not going to take a seat either.
Sure.
So I think you're going to see more activation, more concern for safety, and we'll pick our battles, so to speak. I think the other thing too is we've also seen a year and a half of legislation gridlock because we've seen 2 Democratic senators vote the wrong way on several issues. And if we want things like healthcare justice, if we want equity in our government, the government we own, we all own it. We're all stakeholders in this thing.
Yeah.
And of our very fragile democracy, then we've got to vote in the right people. We've got to vote in people that at least have a propensity for being an open-minded person, like a Justice Beasley, that has the ability to look at both sides of an issue and then have a ruling as a former Supreme Court justice. So
Rachel,
the critical thinking skills that
Rachel looks like she wants to jump in.
Bud doesn't have.
Yeah. Now, I just wanted to kind of jump in on a note on the filibuster. Last year, Indivisible groups around the country really pushed really hard across for the democracy reforms we need and for ending the filibuster so that we can get that. We moved 8 or 9 senators into the yes category. We didn't get the last 2 we needed, but we'll replace them with those that will, right? And sometimes you don't see the behind the scenes changes that have occurred, but we did move the needle pretty significantly. We didn't get it far enough, but we moved it around that one issue, and we've moved it around a lot of issues. So, we won't see a Democratic senator get elected again if they stand in support of the filibuster. We've changed that Overton window.
Wonderful. So a quick question for Jenny, and then we need to kind of wind down the show because we do value everyone's time. Jenny, one of the things that I'm concerned with this "Don't Say Gay" bill in Florida, with the attacks towards our transgender community, with the this groomer calling me a groomer. I don't see the LGBT community jumping up in outrage and marching like I do the women's. do you think it's because we're like, you're just stupid? Or
Well, no, I think you've got two different animals. First of all,
okay,
the
real
LGBT
quickly, 'cause we gotta wind
community
down.
is very small in comparison to a population of women. Women are almost 54% of the population. The LGBT community, well, the trans community is 0.8, less than 1%. So even if we all came out of our caves, and protested, which is never going to happen in any populace, only a certain percentage of people are always going to be called to action. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And typically it's an 80-20 rule. Maybe 20% of the population is actually going to be active in anything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not even comparable to the women's march, the women's movement, that sort of thing.
I mean, is that something that y'all, Rachel?
I think one more thing I want to say is
Sure.
also, too, the entities that have been fighting this battle have been tied up so much in court. We've had over 400 anti-LGBT bills proposed in 18 months. So when you're talking about the ACLU, the HRC, all the
Equality,
groups,
Florida,
stuff like that,
yeah.
it's all hands on deck to raise money, to pay for attorneys, pay for star witnesses, experts in whatever field they're attacking, whether kids sports or whatever. So you got to remember, our court battles are comparable to the 1970s when reproductive rights were under attack and when Roe versus Wade happened. And so that was reserved more to the courts back then. Now it's more of a call to action because cis women in general have had this reproductive human right for 50 plus years. And so when that gets pulled away after 50 plus years, you're going to get a reactive from that 54% of the population. So it's going to be torches. I could just tell you. Now, how long that lasts and how long it's sustained, I think will be decided by Congress. I don't think it's going to. I think if Congress can codify Roe into law this fall, I think you'll see some of it iced down a little bit.
Okay, Jen. Hey, we only got about 5 minutes. I want Rachel to jump in. Rachel, you want to add anything before we start closing down?
No, I just say that I'd love to see some instead of so much of the large protests. I think that's almost a strategy and a tactic that we've overused. They're great. We should absolutely use that as the right to assemble and the right to protest grievances. Absolutely enshrined in the First Amendment for a good reason. But I'd love to see some more, let's call it bird dogging, right? Where you just kind of get out. They're going to be home all summer. They're going to be having campaign events, showing up, getting them on the record, getting their, viral moment with a couple of good questions to see if you can even get them to answer. I think that's the lower risk when it comes to these large gatherings, especially as we go into this summer full of.
You mean risk like for security?
For security, absolutely.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
And to manage a large crowd of
3,000 thought about that.
3,000 people is a lot of people to keep safe when you're doing a big event, a big rally, especially with the heatedness of gun debate right now. But bird dogging, get out there and find your senator, get Ted Cruz and Lindsey Graham on camera and hit them with these questions. That's my last minute.
Yeah, Lindsay was probably in Orlando this weekend. It was gay days at Disney. So I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jenny.
I was going to say real quick. Rachel's got a great point because we saw, I don't know if it was this weekend or the weekend before, but somebody bird dogged Ted Cruz at a restaurant, and the video went viral, of course. And conversely, we've also seen several Republican politicians starting to break rates on the gun control issue, saying they would vote for gun control measures. And so you kind of wonder if they said, I don't want to be the next Ted. I don't want to I think at some point gun brokers, responsible gun advocates are going to say, you know what? You got to give to get. And also, I don't want to be Ted Cruz. I don't want to be lampooned. I don't want to. I don't want to be the ass of the generation.
Yeah,
and have also, optics kids shot in your home state, and you're going, I'm still going to go to the NRA convention.
Yeah, and I think it's a great idea, Rachel, because I think we just have to continue to remind them 70%, almost a little bit over 70% of Americans, both Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated, support some type of gun sense legislation. And even it's above 50% with even Republicans. So they are completely out of the mindset of Americans. So listen, we only got about 2 minutes left, so we're going to wind down. If you didn't notice, St. Bernie and baby Trump Pinata left us. So that way you can kind of listen to more of us, and they'll be back on the next show. And also just want to remind people that next week we hopefully will have here in Mecklenburg County, one of my favorite elected public servants, Commissioner Mark Jarrell. He's a commissioner in the Mecklenburg County Commissioners. And we'll be talking about Juneteenth. It is sorry, we run out of time here. Okay. Sorry about that. That's like telling me to shut up. All right. So anyway, next week we'll be talking about Juneteenth. But so we're going to end the show. Rachel, tell us where you're going to be over the next week, and then Jenny, and then we'll end the show.
June 7th, Give No Ground launches online virtual. So you can probably go back and find the recording of it. Otherwise, we will be doing our electoral kickoff starting Tuesday and running through November 8th. So that's where I'll be.
I will be at the Wedgwood Center tomorrow night. It's our first in-person meeting for the National Organization for Women's Charlotte chapter. We have a special presentation from the Non-Discrimination Ordinance Enforcement Group for the city of Charlotte. They're going to show what it entails, how it's operating right now, basically the status of the NDO and the state of the NDO. And it's going to be, I've already seen the presentation. They've already walked me through it. It's going to be incredible.
Can you watch that virtually? I mean,
we are not doing a virtual component this time. We probably will in the future, but we're not a technology group. But anyway, I wish we could. But this is actually one of the first times this group has actually done the presentation too. So it's walking through all the things that you would do with a presentation like this, and with a friendly audience of the National Organization for Women. They won't be too critical, and they're usually pretty kind to guests. So anyway, we're excited about it and excited to present that to everybody, including our members and non-members as well. It's open to the public. And then pretty much just working after that. But I will encourage people to get involved with groups like Indivisible. I've been involved with Indivisible Amarillo when I lived in Amarillo, Texas before I moved here. And then I've been active with the ID9 group, a wonderful group of people that have been completely welcoming to me. I can say personally, as a queer trans woman, I've never felt rejection or felt like on the outside looking in. They've allowed me to ask questions at some of their biggest town halls. Yes, much love.
Hey, Jen,
one of the reasons I was excited about having Rachel on the show.
Okay, Jen. So Rachel, real quickly, 30 seconds. How can they join your group and get involved?
Indivisible NC District 9 has a website you can find on, I suggest starting there, indivisible.org for our homepage website. We have a map. If you are anywhere else around the country or region, we're actually auditing the map, so it should be super current as far as what your local groups are. And you can reach out to info@Indivisible, and we can connect you with the organizer from your state if there's not a group nearby.
Excellent. I'll say, y'all have done some really good stuff. I mean, I'm glad that we have y'all, at least here in Charlotte, in the Mecklenburg County area. So, and I'm sure around the country, I know they're doing some great stuff. So I'm glad. So we're going to end the show. Join us next week. And don't forget to watch Jenny's show in about 30 minutes after this one. And anything else before I turn the music on and show you how to dance? No? I mean,
let's rock it out.
Here we go. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. We'll see you next week on Coffee Pan Dulce. How's that? That's all you do. You just hit it. There you go. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for watching. And next week, we have a really fun show, a special show coming up. But we had a great show tonight. And without y'all, Christy and I'd be talking to ourselves. Have a great week. Thanks.
Bye, y'all. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Rachel.
Next up, thanks for watching Coffee and Pan Dulce. Next up is Two Queers in a Truck. Stay tuned.